How the heck are you, everybody? I am Fastidious. Welcome to my channel, and welcome to this week's edition of Should You Summon? The banners in question this weekend are the Flame Scale Invocation of Spirits and the Flame Scale Divine Summoning. This is from the Flame Scale Frenzy event. We have a 2x by 15x on blue rare summons and gold divine legendary summons. The question is, should you summon? No.
Fastidious.
All right, guys, let's get into it. We're going to split this video into two parts. The first part is going to be the serious should you summon, where I actually do answer the question for all players, all spender types, all progression types. But the reason I started with the joke like that is 95% of you, honestly, I think it's that many, should just hard skip this entire weekend and continue saving. That is because we have amazing banners coming, hopefully very soon, but worst case, pretty soon, you know, within 2 months or something. Kagiri is the main thing I want to discuss, so that actually will be the second half of this video, where I'm going to just quickly explain, and it will be short. This is not going to be a long video, certainly by my standards, where I'm just going to explain why I think almost everybody should be just saving for Kagiri instead. And that means people that are like new players, old players, early game, end game, everyone's going to be summoning for him, and in different ways. But for now, let's discuss this banner, and quite frankly, let's just discuss who would be summoning on this banner. So let me introduce you to the heroes. If you don't know, I'm going to do like a minute on each, a minute tops. So we've got Trusk. Trusk is an esotericist defender. He deals damage based off of his defense, and it is magic DPS. He probably, besides Gone, is the best damage dealer based off defense in the game. But that's really not saying much. Basically, he is able to increase his own defense and adjacent allies by a pretty significant amount, 30%, and that can be really strong in improving his damage. He's got kind of rollout counterattacks. He's got interesting things in his kit. Overall, he's very solid. He can increase his block during his ultimate. He, can also increase his defense even further. He's a very good hero, but he's just a really good tank. There's no content yet where you need a defensive DPS, where you need a magic DPS defender. You know, I guess occasionally might be content where you want an esotericist defender, but for a lot of you that are in that situation, you may already have Cyrus, and if you don't, there's workarounds where you can just bring in your Northerners and stuff like that. So all in all, he's one of my favorite heroes in the game. He's very fun to use, but at the end of the day, he's just a very good defender. Full stop. That's it. That is certainly not something to be unloading your summons on, especially given what we know is coming, right? Like a lot of good banners on the lineup, and then a 250 guaranteed exclusive banner for Kagiri, who sincerely will be game changing for a vast majority of accounts in this game. Next up, we're gonna do Salazar. When I started playing, Salazar was like the creme de la creme, top dog for fighters. He was all the top GB teams, GB1 teams at that time, just Guild Boss. We didn't have Guild Boss 2. All those teams had Salazar. I remember watching a Mob Bucket video, and he had like an A3 Salazar that blew my mind as a new free-to-play player. And yeah, he had saved up. He had got a bunch of rewards from his Forerunner server, which he carried over to like his content creator awards to the global server, and kind of went ham on that very early Salazar banner that they had. And yeah, I think it was Salazar and Zila 2 and Zealous. And that's how good he was, right? He was crazy. He had burst damage. He's very unique in that he would launch these many strikes, these 6 strikes, and if he killed someone, he would just move on to the next. So functionally, because his super high attack, especially when we all started playing this game and started progressing, because he had very high attack at 6,500 flat, it almost felt like an AoE. He would just be knocking everyone down. Very good. He was one of the best sources of bleed in the game. And he was a very exciting hero. He's a great faction. Nightmare is what everyone seems to progress through the early and mid game with. So that was Salazar. I would say he's still good. Lately has gotten better with a little glow up in Arena, and he's got some high functionality in Guild Boss 2, but he really has fallen off a cliff. He is not a required hero at all. If you get him with any depth into your progression, you know, as you've cleared a bunch of stuff, you have other fighters, he's outclassed by a lot, in my opinion, even still. He's like a solid S-tier fighter, even with the improvements he's had lately, you know, as there's been newer content and newer metas that have made him more relevant. This is not a must summon unit. It is cool if you are able to snag him, or if you already have him during this Flame Scale Frenzy, you're guaranteed to get his exclusive artifact, which is his best in slot. Let me know in the comments if you want. I could do a video showing that off. It really is a great artifact for him. Basically, it's like a very souped up Scarlet Hunt that also gives him rage regen. So it's pretty nice. This is not the most expensive ult in the world. This thing comes down to 900, so you can cycle it pretty darn fast. All in all, very good fighter, very not like required, and not to the level of the heroes we unload on these banners. You know, we had that 2x by 15x with Zila 2 and Hex. This guy ain't Zila 2 and Hex. Like, I know it's not an apples to apples comparison. He's just not at that level. This is not an S+ or, you know, triple S in certain content kind of hero. That's just not who Salazar is. He used to be just so crazy, but, you know, once Valeria came and then we got a few others, and, you know, now with the crazy heroes in the game, that ain't Salazar. Now Ferssi, this is the reason to pull. If you don't have Ferssi, but this is going to be like 5% of you. I wasn't lying when I said 95% of you should just hard skip this, even though it's a 2x by 15x. The 5% of you that should want Ferssi is like, if you want to go back, rewind to the Hex Ferssi rate up when I covered that and how thirsty and desperate I was for Ferssi. Basically, if you're trying to break through those next thresholds when you're kind of in that end game and really trying to make progress in Guild Boss 2, Ferssi, after getting that 50k chest, the 50k mech fragment points in Guild Boss 2, trying to get that 80k and certainly the 120k, Ferssi is not required, but like nearly required. His AoE damage mitigation is outrageously strong. So it starts at only minus 5% damage taken. This is all AoE damage incoming to any allies in his range. It doesn't look like it here, but I'll show you. He's got that big boy range, the Vortex Ferssi range, as I call it. So it's like your whole team if you build it right in Guild Boss 2. 5% might not seem like much. All these skill ups just directly increase it. It can improve 5x from a 5% reduction to a 25% reduction on AoE damage, except for those single target rocks, like the single hits that are going to go towards your tank or whatever unit in your Guild Boss 2 team has the highest HP. Every other hit is AoE. So every other hit the Guild Boss is putting out, straight up as the damage comes in, is hit with a minus 25% reduction. So significant. Once you stack that with a damage decrease from like a Volga or an Alistair, or if in more budget comps, maybe a Draga or something, it's so good. However, you do not need that level of damage mitigation until you are heading towards those higher chests. If you've got a very meta Arbiter team, you might hit them earlier on in your progression journey. Maybe you're in like the later part of the late game, not like a proper end game account. If you've got a good, you know, Alistair, Ingrid, or maybe you're throwing in, of course, a Praetus, you know, you got a Jira. If you've got a nice Arbiter thing cooking, you might progress pretty fast. But until you're at those levels of progression, so like the late game, or for non-Arbiter teams, basically end game, you'll get to 50k without him. I did it. It wasn't actually that hard once your team starts cooking and you start figuring it out. The damage mitigation really only comes into play on those like third, fourth, fifth cycles of all the annoying phases in Guild Boss 2. So if that's you, you're ready to make that push, you kind of just freaking need Ferssi, and you won't have a better opportunity because it's 2 times rate up on legendaries. So your chance to hit a legendary rarity hero is doubled, and then on top of that, once you hit, you have a 15 times rate up. It isn't actually 15 times. I have a video on that tomorrow. We have a very high rate up on getting Ferssi. So you will be far more likely to hit the legendary, and then once you hit that legendary, you'll be far more likely that it is Ferssi. If you don't believe me how strong he is for these farther along later levels, right? First off, look at my guild. Every single person has Ferssi. It's just full stop. Everyone has him. Here's the first one that doesn't, and it's a 51k team. So shout out to K009. This is the kind of team that's going to need him, right, to make that push. And this is exactly the kind of person I'm talking to. This is the 5% of people that need him. You go to any of these top teams pushing way beyond 50k, right? Obviously, not everyone's done their runs yet, but you'll see Nightmare teams, Arbiter teams, you'll see Infernal teams. I know I saw a Watcher team. You'll see Piercer teams. Where is it? Piercer teams. There's one constant. Ferssi, 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 Ferssi. No Ferssi. So there's the one team, Chili out. And would you believe it? It's a shockingly pay-to-win awesome team. Ferssi, Ferssi, you get it, right? Everyone is Ferssi, 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 Ferssi. If you are at that point, if you're in that small group, that 2%, 5%, 8%, whatever it actually comes out to, where you're ready to make that push beyond 50k and you don't have Ferssi, I really think you have to summon. Everyone else should skip. Everyone else, the answer is no, just like I said at the beginning of this video. Let's transition it to part 2 of the video, and that is Kagiri. Kagiri is supremely exciting for players of all different types. I really mean that. He's a really, really fun hero. He's in a strictly unique dual faction membership in both Nightmare and Watcher. He's the only hero like that in the entire game. I have all my test server things, but just take my word for it. It's super unique, super strong. He's honestly very unique just as a Watcher fighter. The only other ones are Ein, Dallin, and Cyrene. I guess also Borit, but you know what I'm saying. It's a very special combination. These are two factions that have become more and more meta. You know, Watcher got a huge glow up where the Lord skills were buffed. We got Ingrid. Leia also got the buff of the Lord skill. Ein even did too. So Watcher became more relevant. Very good for Guild Boss 2. Seems like they're pushing Watcher more for harder content as it comes in. And then Nightmare just has glow up after glow up after glow up as content gets harder and harder, and you need things like defense breaks from Ares or Torador, and you need super strong melee DPS from heroes like Lust and of course Arrogance. You know who's on that level? Kagiri. Even at A0, he's at least in the conversation with those two others. The craziness, like in terms of not just DPS, but also significant utility, debuffing, stuff like that. He is there. He is that elite in terms of Nightmare fighters. Throw in the fact that he's also a Watcher fighter and major DPS, and then the fact that his awakenings are supremely strong. We'll actually wrap up with that. This is a must-pull unit. I really think almost it's like how I felt about Lust. I'm going to show videos testing him a lot at A0, at A1, at A5, all that kind of stuff. He's really a gem, and you're gonna get him. There's no roll of the dice, right? As long as you are in control of your summons, and you have at least like 200 summons saved up, or you will have them saved up by the time he comes around. So that's why I'm saying keep saving, because you'll get the rebate from selling off your rares, you'll get more diamonds. So many of us are going to get him, right? It's not that hard to stockpile summons in this game. You can stockpile when you're later on about 50 to 60 a week, right? So and that's not counting diamonds. You guys can get him. Even if he comes next week, the event will go on for like 5 or 6 days. I don't think he is going to come the 20th as we originally anticipated. He hopefully will come soon, but we should all have time to just save up for him. So if you're like early, mid, late game, and you're anything but a whale or a kraken, you can still pull on this banner if you want. This banner meaning the Lizard and Day banner, or just other stuff in general as it comes, but make sure you're at least at like that 200, 210 summons to know you'll get enough rebate back. Maybe it's 220. I can do the math for you guys if you want, on average, how much you need. Just make sure you're in position to go for Kagiri. I'm sure his event will come with like 20 summons worth of rare summoning crystals and diamonds as well through the big event that's coming with it, and the stages and the challenges, all that fun stuff. It should be a lot of fun when it does come. Just make sure you're in that position. And then the one copy is enough, because after that, nothing's guaranteed. It just becomes a normal rate up banner for Kagiri. If you are a whale or certainly a kraken, you're going to want to get him with a ton of awakening. So this is how we can wrap it up. Take my word for it. I'm sure other content creators have already covered it. I will also cover it if you guys want. He's super strong, right? So his kit, let's take one quick step back. This is gonna be 10 seconds on Kagiri. He has parrying, so kind of a counterattack. He does these sweeping strikes that have a big AoE and then a hard single target to whoever has the highest HP. He's got this Ember Strike that does even more damage, even more single target to the highest HP, and puts out a bleed. That additional damage, the single target also is gonna dispel a buff, just like Lucius, one buff at a time, but it's super strong, and then ignores 50% defense, and then the rest of the cook just cooks together. The rest of the kit, that all just cooks together. Really good stuff, ramps up his attack. You get it. Really, really good hero. Super high base stats, so that's enough of the kit. Super high base stats, right? If we go here, 6470 base attack. Really good stuff, a typical 2.6. You get it. It's a good kit. Now with the awakenings, we get this over here. When launching a basic attack, you're building Rage. So this is actually just like similar to Praetus. Instead of a percentage, it's just 3 rage points, but that still is significant. And then additionally, unlike a Praetus or something, you're getting 3% HP restoration, so he can sustain himself a bit. More attack, taking him over 6,700 base attack. Then we got 10 seconds after his typical sweeping strike, a key piece in his kit. Each instance of direct damage inflicted is going to have additional damage equal to 35% of that damage. And then when the Ember strikes, the juiced up version, when that happens, the direct damage is going to bring 2 additional instances of damage. Now it's 25 per instance as opposed to the 35 total, but that is 2 instances, so it's better. Then we get penetration, just flat out always ignoring an additional 8% of defense because he does do physical damage. And then finally, we get these enhancements on the A5 that are so good. The 2 big pieces of his kit, the sweeping strike and then the juiced up version, the Ember strike, they are going to be, when they're launched during his ultimate, they're going to always trigger the counter. So instead of waiting to get hit and have it to do a parry, he's just always going to be doing it. whenever those things happen. He's just going to immediately do it. It is a big amount of damage. So for you big spenders, you big pullers, you big summoners, big puller, that sounds funny. You're going to want Hump Awakenings into this guy, because once the banner's gone, he's gone, right? He is a limited hero. He's a guaranteed exclusive hero. It's very exciting. It's so much more exciting just to bring this home than what we've got over here. You know, it really is. So I hope I've been clear. I hope I haven't stuttered too much. I hope I've been to the point. If you don't have Ferssi and you're at that cusp of making a bigger push towards like your 80K or 120K, Ferssi could be the answer. But I do want to say, very anecdotally, we don't have the rates on this, but it doesn't seem like there's such a huge difference in rewards between 120K and 50K too. I'm just going to throw that out there. I do love Ferssi, and I do think most people in that bucket should still go for him. But even those people, I think, could skip if they wanted to. Everyone else should keep saving. Summon or save. 95% of you save. The 5% Ferssi desires probably summon, but I honestly wouldn't blame you even if you don't. And that's it. Lizard Day weekend. I'm curious how many people actually end up summoning. Let me know in the comments if you still do summon. I'm not planning a pulse party tomorrow. If for some reason there's a bunch of demand, we can do it. But I kind of just want to be encouraging you guys to save. It really is as simple as that. Thank you guys so much for watching. I've been Fastidious. If you like my stuff, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, share it with your mother, and I'll see you real soon. Bye.